politics in an exclusive interview with President Barack Obama, exactly 1 year to the day after he was sworn into office. The timing couldn't be more critical, with Democrats licking their wounds after a stunning special election upset in Massachusetts, with Republican Scott Brown winning the seat that was once Ted Kennedy's. The president's one-year anniversary was anything but celebratory. My colleague George Stephanopolous sat down earlier today with the president at the White House. George?
Cynthia, I think the safest thing to say that this is not how the White House expected or planned to spend today. They hadn't even paid that much attention to the Senate race in Massachusetts until just a couple of weeks ago. And then the bottom fell out.
Thank you.
By the time the White House saw it coming, it was too late.
And I bet they can hear this cheering all the way in Washington, D.C.
And less than 24 hours before the one-year anniversary of President Obama's inauguration,
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear.
the voters of that bluest of states, Massachusetts, sent a powerful rebuke to the president, voting Republican Scott Brown into the Senate over Democrat Martha Coakley. A political nightmare for Obama that will change the course of his presidency. And so today, with his agenda under fire and more than 60% of the country saying we're on the wrong track, we sat down with President Obama in the Roosevelt Room, a year to the day, almost the hour, from that icy January moment when he became president. So I'm looking at that clock. 1 year ago, you were just about to take the oath of office. Yeah. And now you get this anniversary present from the voters of Massachusetts. You know, Robert Gibbs was saying that you were surprised and frustrated by the vote. Is that accurate?
Here's my assessment of not just the vote in Massachusetts, but the mood around the country. You know, the same thing that swept Scott Brown into office swept me into office. People are angry and they're frustrated, not just because of what's happened in the last year or 2 years, but what's happened over the last 8 years. And here in Washington, from their perspective, the only thing that happens is that we bail out the banks.
But you're in charge now.
It was the right thing to do for us to salvage the financial system. And I make no apologies for that at all. But we knew at the time how politically toxic that was.
Republicans say that the anger goes beyond the bailout, the financial bailout. I was talking to Michael Steele this morning, the Republican National Committee chair. He says it's a repudiation of your entire agenda.
Well, I think if he's suggesting that people voted against credit card reform or prevention of housing fraud reform, or that they were voting against national service, or they were voting against the 4 million children who have health insurance now because of the steps that we've taken, I don't think that's a plausible claim.
Probably talking about health care.
Talk to all those people out there right now who have lost their health care during the course of this year because they've lost their jobs, or all the small businesses who've seen the premiums that they're paying going up 20, 25%. You know, the reason I tackled health care wasn't because this was my personal hobby horse. The reason I tackled it was during the course of the campaign, I traveled all across this country and I kept on hearing heartbreaking stories about families who were bankrupt because they got sick. And by the way, when I got here and I looked at how we were going to get control of our long-term debt, I realized that there was no way for us to control our long-term debt unless we reform how our healthcare system works.
But you also made a fundamental decision in this first year to push through the bulk of your agenda right away. Some would say focus instead on the economy. Our system can't handle too much. You took that on in your inaugural address.
There are some who question the scale of our ambitions, who suggest that our system cannot tolerate too many big plans. Their memories are short, for they have forgotten what this country has already done.
Looking back now, don't those critics have a point?
Here's the problem, though. If we didn't take on health care, then when were we going to take it on? And if we don't take it on, then what are we going to say to families when 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 4 years from now, their premiums have gone up 30, 40%? Now, part of the problem we've got is that a process in Washington to actually solve problems, to talk about them in honest ways, to think about people first and not the special interests and the lobbyists who have disproportionate power here. That system is broken.
But you're not on the campaign trail now. You're right here in the White House. You're the head
Right.
of this system. You promised transparency, putting the healthcare debates on C-SPAN. It didn't happen. People said he promised to get rid of earmarks. They look at the health care bill and see all these carve-outs for Nebraska, for Louisiana. They say you're not living up to your promises.
Well, look, there's no doubt that when I look back at the course of this year, what I'm constantly balancing is how do I move on these big agendas and at the same time try to reform a system that has a lot of bad habits built up into it. So am I satisfied with the progress that we've made on changing how Washington works?
Did you become complicit?
Absolutely not. Was fighting for those things worth it, even though there are some compromises that have to be made along the way? Then I would say yes.
But even your allies are saying you're going to have to listen to the message of the voters in Massachusetts. Listen to Evan Bayh yesterday.
If you lose Massachusetts, if it's not a wake-up call, there's no hope of waking up.
He says basically Democrats have to reach out, especially independents and moderates, slow down the agenda because Americans just aren't buying what the Democrats are selling.
What is absolutely true is during the course of this year, what you have is a situation in which we've got to take a lot of steps quickly that we know are unpopular, but were necessary. And if you ask the average person what was our stimulus package, they'll tell you the bank bailout. And you know, I can say, well, no, actually that started before I was sworn in and we've managed it very well, but it doesn't negate that sense on people's part that nobody is looking after them in an extremely tough situation. So the reason I say that we are not surprised by what happened in Massachusetts is because I'm frustrated too. I'm frustrated by the fact that over the last decade, we have not seen the kind of progress for middle-class families that are needed. That's what I promised to deliver in the campaign. It's not something that I believe that we can get done in a year, but it is something that I think we are starting to make progress on.